Evening. Are we hungry? We are not hungry. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. In fact, we're very miserly when we were clapping for our awardees. Please rise, the fellows, please rise up again. We're going to give you a resounding round of applause, please. They have done marvelously well. If you work in a newsroom in Ghana, you know how difficult it is to continue to deliver and still make time to build capacity, which is also the only pathway to improving the quality of our reports. So once again, distinguished guests, let's give a round of applause. Thank you all, dear colleagues, for the hard work and the recognition. Kindly resume your seats. In fact, journalism does not pay much, but quality journalism rewards abundantly in the works and the impacts that the stories you tell create. Before I go into my speech, I would like, once again, on behalf of President John Dramani Mahama, to extend our deepest commiserations to all the families and citizens and those who live and work in Ghana who were affected severely by our recent devastating floods. The President extends his deepest sympathies and is greatly troubled by the loss of lives, property, businesses, possessions. It is therefore our hope that as we begin what might be described as a massive exercise to correct the wrongs done to our waterways, we will get the cooperation of especially the journalists to tell stories that will help to shift behaviors and attitudes, to tell stories that would hold government accountable to the promise we made to the people to fix the problem and to keep us on our feet to do just that. So the President extends this invitation to all of you to help us in the next days, weeks, and months as we begin what will be a difficult and painful exercise, but a necessary one should we avoid what happened a couple of days ago and what continues to happen year on year. Thank you for that. Once again, good evening and thank you for your invitation to be here. As a journalist, any event about journalism is an event that, unless I am not available, if invited, I will attend. And when Kwachi sent me the invitation, and I was certainly available, I am here, and I'm glad to be here. This evening marks two significant milestones for the Africa Extractive Media Fellowship. We celebrate the graduation of its inaugural cohort, the class of 2025-2026, 20 Ghanaian journalists who have successfully completed 6 months of specialist training in extractives reporting. We also witnessed the formal inauguration of the second cohort of 50, which is impressive from the first 20, of 50 journalists, the largest single intake of extractives-focused journalism trainees in Ghana's history. On behalf of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, I bring you his warmest greetings and his best wishes. The President extends his heartfelt congratulations to the graduating fellows for their commitment to professional excellence and commends Newswire Africa in partnership with the Australian High Commission in Ghana for this remarkable initiative, which is strengthening journalism, promoting accountability, and advancing the responsible governance of Ghana's natural resources. Ambassador, we thank you for your number of years that you have worked with us together in fostering good governance and supporting journalists. Thank you so very much. We will miss you tremendously, but we know that you will continue to do great work wherever you move on next from here. It is therefore a privilege to join diplomatic missions, government officials, leaders of the extractive industry, civil society organizations, and distinguished media professionals gathered here this evening to celebrate an initiative of such national importance. The Africa Extractives Media Fellowship, as I hear, is a structured 6-month journalism training program that equips Ghanaian journalists to cover the country's mining, oil, gas, and critical mineral sectors with depth, rigor, and public accountability. Fellows engage with leading institutions across the extractive sector, and the program places a deliberate emphasis on recruiting and supporting women journalists, which is really dear to my heart, with a minimum of 60% female participation target. The program is formally supported by the Australian High Commission in Ghana, with partners including the University of Queensland, University of Ghana Business School, Natural Resource Governance Institute, Public Interest and Accountability Committee, Tema Oil Refinery, Heath Goldfields, Digital Earth Africa, CDD Ghana, and the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation. It matters to President Mahama that such initiatives exist in Ghana today. Ghana's extractive sector remains one of the country's most strategic economic pillars, contributing significantly to export earnings, public revenue, foreign exchange generation, and employment. From gold and other minerals to oil and gas, the sector has potential to accelerate Ghana's economic transformation when managed with transparency, efficiency, and public confidence. Yet that potential can only be fully realized if national conversations about the sector are driven by facts, credible data, and informed analysis rather than speculation, misinformation, or sensationalism. This is precisely why the Africa Extractive Media Fellowship is so very important. By equipping journalists with the knowledge, the technical skills, and ethical grounding needed to report accurately on the extractive industry, the fellowship strengthens public understanding and promotes evidence-based journalism that serves the national interest. This mission aligns closely with President Mahama's Resetting Ghana agenda for jobs, accountability, and shared prosperity. It aligns with our ethos to restore trust in our institutions, creating sustainable jobs and ensuring that Ghana's natural wealth translates into improved living standards for every citizen, and that Ghana is able to capture the real value from our natural resources. The Africa Extractive Media Fellowship contributes meaningfully to these national priorities in several important ways. Let's take the issue of jobs. Beyond developing the next generation of specialized business and extractive journalists, the fellowship strengthens the capacity of media professionals whose work support informed investment, public policy dialogue, and economic growth. A more skilled media workforce creates opportunities for professional advancement while contributing to a stronger knowledge economy. On the issue of accountability, a well-trained and independent media remains one of the strongest pillars of democratic governance. Journalists who understand the complexities of mining, of oil and gas operations, of environmental governance, fiscal regimes, and revenue management are better equipped to scrutinize policies, interrogate data, explain complex issues to the public, and hold both public institutions and private companies accountable. In doing so, they reinforce transparency and strengthen citizens' confidence in the management of Ghana's natural resources. And need I say, when government has a genuine case in wanting to demand better for its natural resources, they will be our first advocates. On shared prosperity, Ghana's natural resources must deliver benefits that extend beyond today's revenues to create opportunities for future generations. Achieving this requires an informed citizenry capable of participating meaningfully in national conversations about resource governance. Through accurate, balanced, and solutions-oriented reporting, journalists help shape public discourse, promote responsible decision-making, and ensures that discussions on the extractive sector remain focused on sustainable development, environmental stewardship, community welfare, and inclusive economic growth. Ultimately, this fellowship should not merely be a media capacity building initiative. It ought and must be an investment in better governance, stronger institutions, and a more informed democracy by empowering journalists with the expertise to tell Ghana's story with accuracy, balance, integrity. The fellowship should be able to contribute to building the transparency, the accountability, and the public trust that are indispensable to the success of Ghana's economic reset. Ghana's extractive industry is far too important to be shaped by speculation, misinformation, and superficial reporting. It is at the heart of our economy. It touches the life of millions of Ghanaian citizens and those who work and live in this country. And it remains central to our national development aspirations. Every conversation on mining, on gas, environmental stewardship, and resource governance is ultimately a conversation about the future we are building as a nation. And this is why we believe your fellowship is very significant. It is not and should not be about just training journalists. It should be, at its core, about cultivating a new generation of professionals with the expertise to interrogate policy and elevate facts above speculation, and amplifying the voices of communities and holding institutions to the highest standards of accountability. In doing so, it will strengthen informed public discourse, and it will build a stronger democratic governance, because it would simply affirm a powerful truth, that the nation is not transformed by the resources beneath its soil, but by the knowledge, the integrity, the accountability with which those resources are governed. The deliberate investment in women journalists is both timely and necessary. Across Ghana's media landscape, women continue to face structural barriers to visibility, leadership, and permanence in the profession. Ask me, and I'll tell you. Here I am today. And many of my colleagues had to make that difficult transition from journalism to other areas. Recent media sector findings show that only 40% of women in Ghanaian media are in permanent employment, while 74% remain in junior or senior reporter roles, with far fewer representing in decision-making spaces. When ALMA conducted a baseline report a couple of years ago, we found less than 1% of women were in any ownership, management, or leadership role, and this is about 6-7 years ago in Ghana's media landscape. I'm happy to say we haven't done a follow-up research, but today when I turn on the television, I see many more faces of women doing hardcore current affairs and more specialized, reporting than it was, as not very far back as 6-7 years ago. That is some progress, and I'm sure this fellowship is going to do even more in that area. This matters because the extractive sector is not only about revenue, it's about land, livelihoods, water bodies, families, health, migration, and community survival. Women journalists bring depth, sensitivity, and lived understanding to these issues. It's called the feminine gaze. We see differently from men behind the camera. We pick on things that men would not see, and it's just not bias, it's just the feminine gaze. By equipping them, this fellowship is not giving women a favor, it is giving Ghana a fuller, fairer, and more truthful national conversation. The research agenda, thus, is fundamentally about restoring confidence in public institutions and ensuring that governance delivers real value to citizens. It is a sector as sensitive and strategic as the extractives. Accountability cannot depend on government statements alone, and we concede on that note. It must be tested by facts, questioned by competent journalists, and understood by the public. Ghana's improvement in the 2026 World Press Freedom Index, rising from 52nd in 2025 to 39th out of 180 countries, is an important signal. But rankings alone also do not build accountability. Strong institutions and knowledgeable journalists, they are the ones that do. A press that understands the extractive sector is not a threat to government. It is a democratic asset, one that strengthens transparency and attracts responsible investment, exposes weaknesses before they become crises, and ensures that Ghana's natural wealth serves the people, not only the powerful. To the graduating fellows, tonight is not a finish line. It is indeed a commissioning, a higher calling. You are entering a profession at a time when misinformation is spreading faster than facts, where public trust in institutions is constantly tested and the governance of natural resources is under greater scrutiny than ever before. Ghana's ongoing efforts to reform the extractive sector, promote responsible mining, strengthen environmental stewardship, and maximizing the value of our natural resources will require journalists who are patriotic, who are informed enough to explain these complex issues, and who are courageous enough to ask difficult questions of duty bearers, and principled enough to pursue the truth wherever it leads. Let your reporting be defined not by sensational headlines, but by evidence, fairness, and integrity, paying fidelity to the true ethos of your esteemed profession. Be the journalist who give voice to communities, who hold institutions accountable without fear or favor, and help citizens understand not only what is happening, but why it matters. The certificate you received tonight is not your greatest achievement, indeed. The public trust you can earn through your work, that will be the greatest reward. Go forward also, knowing that every accurate story you tell, every fact you verify, and every truth you uphold will strengthen Ghana's media landscape and democracy and ensure that our natural resources become a blessing for even your generations yet unborn. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me say that the true measure of a nation's wealth is not simply, again, the resources beneath its soil, but the integrity with which those resources are governed and the courage with which truth is told to power and to the people. Tonight, we celebrate a new generation of journalists who have elected excellence, responsibility, and public service because you put yourself out voluntarily for this fellowship. To the graduating fellows, I congratulate you on behalf of President John Dramani Mahama, and I urge you to tell every story to advance truth and strengthen accountability and serve the national interest. To the incoming cohort, I welcome you to a journey that demands discipline, integrity, and courage. May your work help build a Ghana where transparency is the norm and accountability is unwavering, and our natural resources become a lasting source of prosperity for all of us. I thank you for your very kind attention. May God bless you all, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana, and certainly make our nation great and strong. I thank you for your kind attention.